All right, you're welcome. Now, Wiper leader and senior counsel Kalonzo Musyoka on Friday joined the Law Society of Kenya's peaceful demonstration to protest against President William Ruto's sentiments against the judiciary. As they danced on the streets of Nairobi with placards, the lawyers maintained that the president should respect the judiciary and its mandate. Reader Kering Chebet with more.
Tekeleza katiba, tekeleza!
Dozens of lawyers on Friday protested in the country's capital, Nairobi, in response to threats to defy court orders by President William Ruto. The lawyers began the march from the Supreme Court to the President's office in the protest organized by the Law Society of Kenya.
We joined the Law Society of Kenya, the Judicial Service Commission, and the Kenyan people in condemning the attacks and urge government officials to refrain from antagonizing the operations of the judiciary with the cornerstone, which is the cornerstone of any just society.
The mood was thick with noise from whistles and trumpets as the LSK members demanded an apology from President Ruto. Some lawyers dressed in full regalia paired with purple ribbons to show that their demonstration was peaceful. Before it commenced, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka described the head of state's actions as unacceptable and that they negated gains achieved following the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution.
We want to say as Law Society that we stand in solidarity. We are not even here to ask you to issue any favorable orders, but just as the President has said, to do the right thing under the law. If this country is not under the rule of law, then it can only mean we are under the jungle law, and that cannot happen. That's why our parents have spent so much money to get such cream of learned lawyers.
The Law Society of Kenya demanded a retraction of President Ruto's statement on disobedience of court orders unfavorable to the government.
In recent weeks, we have witnessed an escalation of attacks on Kenya's judiciary through utterances by various leaders, including the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto. These concerning utterances erode judicial integrity and independence and paint as evil those who legally use courts to challenge government excesses. The East Africa Law Society is deeply concerned about these persistent attacks, which also violate the principle of separation of powers and judicial independence as enshrined in the Kenya's Constitution, as well as in various international instruments, including the United Nations Basic Principles on the Independence of the Judiciary, the Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the African Charter, and the Commonwealth Principles of the three arms of government.
Theuri emphasized the need for the head of state to uphold the rule of law while undertaking his duties.
We will do anything under the law to ensure that we do not slide back to the days when this country was ruled by the rule of man.
LSK urged the judiciary to remain firm at the wake of President William Ruto's attack on judicial officers, whom he has accused of being corrupt and undermining his government's agenda.
I swear by the Almighty God, that I will at all times uphold the rule of law. Law
Society of Kenya vowed to defend the judiciary, constitution and rule of law, warning that the country risks not developing economically or socially unless the exercise of power is restrained.
We will not relent. We will continue to fight for the rule of law, and we will take action. And we are putting Parliament on notice.
Everyone runs to the judiciary, and we cannot close our eyes or bury our heads in the sand as the independence of the judiciary is threatened.
And I don't know why anybody will feel so bad about it, wanting to force judges to issue favorable ruling with regard to the punitive taxes, and more particularly, the housing tax.
Members of the Law Society of Kenya in Siaya County also took to the streets to protest President William Ruto's verbal onslaught against the judiciary.
The attacks also have the unintended consequences consequence of eroding confidence in the judicial system. It is our assertion that the rule of law is essential for the progress and prosperity of any constitutional democracy, Kenya included. Where grievances are raised against any official in the judicial system, we urge that the same be addressed fairly, procedurally, and within the existing legal frameworks.
The demonstrations, part of the countrywide activity by the Law Society of Kenya, saw the advocates practicing at the Siaya Law Courts venture into the streets carrying placards that called for respect between the various arms of the government.
So, Mr. President, aluta continua.
Western Kenya Law Society of Kenya chapter came out to term the president's move as a threat to the rule of law.
And it's a LSK Bungoma chapter protest against the attacks on the judiciary. The said attacks are likely to undermine public confidence and legitimacy of the vital institution in any democratic state that Kenya is or ought to be.
Speaking to journalists outside Bungoma Law Courts, the legal practitioners expressed their disregard in the manner in which the judiciary is being attacked by the political class over unconfirmed allegations.
If indeed there is corruption in the judiciary as alleged by the president, then there are proper and effective ways of dealing with it through reporting, thorough and swift investigation, charging of the subjects, and conviction. The president is well aware of the laid down channels through which grievances can and should be addressed, and as we are all aware, they do not include blunt and brutal attacks to the independence of the judiciary.
The lawyers, led by Western Chapter Chair George Mungasia and Bungoma Chair Daisy Wakoli, they challenged the political class to refrain from soiling the judiciary, citing that it is a legitimate and independent arm of government.
We are aware that the three arms of government, the legislature, the judiciary, and parliament, are independent arms of government, but they work together. And if Parliament legislates, it is the duty of the executive to implement. But where there arises a crisis, the body that protects and interprets the challenges that arise with regard to legislation or any rights that are inflicted either to a body or a member of the Republic of Kenya who is affected, then our ultimate organ is the judiciary. And as been pointed out by the chapter chair for Bungoma, we might not agree with the decisions that are made by the judiciary, but there are proper mechanisms on how you can either appeal or find a way of impeaching that decision.
They say the frequent verbal attacks may damage the public trust in the judiciary, which is the custodian of the rule of law.
We LSK Bungoma chapter condemn the recent attacks and remain committed to promoting and defending the rule of law, human rights, and the independence of the judiciary in Kenya, and prioritize the principles enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya for the betterment of the nation.
In a veiled reference to the head of state, Chief Justice Martha Koome, who spoke on Friday during the handing over ceremony of Chief Registrar of Judiciary Ann Amadi, the Chief Justice challenged those aggrieved to lodge formal complaints against judges.
We are ready to process any complaints against any judge or judicial officer who is implicated in corruption or in any other acts of misconduct, and state that we abhor corruption in all its formats, be it bribery, which is indeed a crime. However, such complaints must be launched and processed in the manner prescribed by the Constitution.
She said The Judicial Service Commission stands ready to process complaints against judicial officers, terming public humiliation of judges as unacceptable. She insisted that the judiciary will not be coerced in any way while giving directives on the matters.
Days are gone when officers were hounded, judges, judicial officers were hounded out of office through name calling and naming and shaming. The Judicial Service Commission, which is the body mandated by the Constitution to deal with matters of complaints, will only act on the basis of evidence and not on blanket statements or allegations that have not been substantiated. Doing otherwise will mean that we will be overthrowing the Constitution.
The march in the Nairobi CBD was attended by Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, and Kivutha Kibwana, who warned the president against threatening judges, handling cases of taxes and levies, which they term as punitive.
Judiciary must be respected and it must be allowed to do what the Constitution says it must do. If he has any evidence against any of the judicial officers, let him follow the laid down procedures.
For Maisha Prime, Maisha Television, I'm Rita Kering Chebet.